Entitled Mom Tried to Adopt My Daughter at the Park. Hi Reddit, I'm not the type to usually post stuff like this, but after what happened recently, I've been running through the events in my head so many times that I just need to get it out. Maybe writing it all down will help me process it, and maybe someone out there can relate. Let me start by giving you a little background on who I am and what my life looks like, so the story makes more sense later on. I'm a 32-year-old single mom to the most incredible little girl in the world, Ellie, who just turned 5 last month. She's the type of kid who makes everyone around her smile, always humming some song, drawing little rainbows on every surface she's allowed to, and sometimes the ones she's not, and her laughter. God, it could warm up a frozen heart. Her dad and I split up when she was about 18 months old. No big dramatic story there. We were young, incompatible, and trying to force something that didn't work. He's around, but not much. Calls on holidays, sends a gift now and then, but parenting is mostly on me. And honestly, I don't mind. It's not easy, but Ellie is my world. We live in a small but cozy 2-bedroom apartment in a pretty safe suburb. I work remotely as a graphic designer, which gives me the flexibility to spend a lot of time with her. I purposely chose this area for the parks and schools. It's very family-friendly, or at least that's what the brochures said. Anyway, Ellie and I have a little ritual. Every Saturday morning, we go to this local park. It's not huge, but it has this whimsical playground with painted animal statues, a mini climbing wall, and a sandbox Ellie could live in if I let her. There's also this big oak tree with a circular bench around it, my favorite spot to sit with my sketchbook while Ellie plays. The regulars at the park have become kind of like a background cast in our lives, familiar faces we don't talk to much, but we exchange polite nods. Other parents, nannies, joggers, that one guy who always brings his parrot, not even joking. It's usually peaceful, easygoing, one of the few places I feel like I can breathe. And that's why what happened came so far out of left field that I'm still questioning how real it even was. I didn't notice her at first, the woman who would eventually turn our simple little Saturday into a complete nightmare. She blended in, at least in the beginning. Blonde bob, designer-looking stroller, big sunglasses, yoga pants. Honestly, she looked like every other suburban mom. But something was off. So like I said, the park was our little haven, something predictable, something easy. And that Saturday started out just like any other. Ellie had insisted on wearing her sparkle skirt, this ridiculous rainbow tulle thing that glittered every time she moved. She even matched it with her little unicorn backpack and jelly sandals. She looked like a walking sticker sheet, and I loved it. We got there around 10 a.m. The sun was warm but not brutal yet, so the park had filled up a bit earlier than usual. I found our usual spot on the bench under the oak tree, pulled out my sketchbook and pencil, and Ellie went running toward the climbing structure like she always did, no hesitation. About 15 minutes in, I noticed this woman sitting on the other end of the circular bench. I didn't think much of it. Like I said, we get a lot of regulars, but also new faces all the time. She had a big iced coffee, sunglasses that covered half her face, and she was scrolling through her phone with one hand while gently rocking a fancy-looking stroller with the other. Ellie ran by chasing another kid, and the woman looked up and smiled, the kind of smile that people do when they see a cute kid. I smiled back, instinctively polite, and went back to my sketching. But then she spoke. "Is she yours?" she asked, looking in Ellie's direction. I glanced up. "Yeah, that's my daughter, Ellie. She's beautiful," she said, nodding approvingly. "She looks different, unique. You don't see kids like her very often." I gave a polite laugh, not quite sure how to respond. Ellie does have striking features, deep auburn hair, these huge hazel eyes, and dimples that only show when she laughs. I chalked the comment up to that. "Thanks," I said, "she definitely keeps things interesting." The woman leaned in a bit, like she wanted to say more but was weighing whether or not to. "I've just never seen her here before." That struck me as a little odd, because we come every Saturday and a lot of Sundays too. But maybe she was new. "We're here a lot," I said, keeping my voice friendly but neutral. "Probably just missed each other." She nodded again and finally introduced herself. "I'm Justine, by the way. That's my son, Caleb." She gestured toward the stroller. I couldn't see the kid well, just a wiggly leg poking out of a blanket. I told her my name, just first name, out of habit, and we sat there in silence for a few minutes, sipping drinks and watching the kids. Nothing about the conversation felt wrong exactly, but something was off. I've had dozens of small talk moments with parents in that park. This one felt a little too focused on Ellie, like she was paying more attention than casual curiosity would warrant. Still, I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just friendly. Maybe I was being paranoid. But over the next couple of weekends, I'd find out I wasn't. The next weekend, Ellie and I went back to the park, same time, same place. She was in a bubble-blowing phase and insisted on bringing this little blue dinosaur-shaped bubble machine she got for her birthday. We were barely 5 steps into the park before she switched it on, filling the air with bubbles while giggling like a maniac. Pure joy. We hadn't even made it to our bench when I heard someone call out, "Ellie." It stopped me in my tracks for a second. At first I thought maybe someone from her preschool recognized her, or maybe another kid who remembered her name from the previous week. But when I turned toward the voice, there was Justine, sitting at the same bench, iced coffee in hand, big sunglasses, and this wide, almost too pleased smile. Now, I know that sounds petty, people remember names. But something about how comfortably she said Ellie's name, like they were already friends or something, didn't sit quite right with me. Ellie looked up, confused. She didn't recognize the voice and just clutched my hand a little tighter like she does when she's unsure of someone. "Oh hey," I said cautiously. "Didn't expect to run into you again." Justine patted the spot next to her on the bench. "Come sit, I was hoping we'd see you two again." I gave her a tight smile and sat, but on the opposite end of the bench. Ellie stayed standing next to me, fiddling with the bubble machine. Justine leaned forward and looked directly at Ellie. "Hey there, sweetheart, you remember me?" Ellie looked up at me before shaking her head silently. "That's okay," Justine said, still smiling. "I remembered you. You made quite the impression last week." I tried to redirect the conversation. "How's Caleb doing?" She shrugged. "He's fussy. Teething, probably, but he'll grow out of it." Then she turned the conversation right back to Ellie. "You know, I was telling my husband about her. Her energy, her look. She's just something else. You don't see kids like that anymore." I managed an awkward laugh. "She's definitely her own little person." "I meant it when I said she's special," Justine continued. "Honestly, if I'd had a daughter, I would have wanted one just like her." I was starting to feel that old prickling in the back of my neck, that, I want to be polite, but something about this feels weird, kind of discomfort. Justine leaned back and sipped her drink, then said, almost casually, "You know, some people aren't meant to have just one child. Some people are meant to raise more. Like, more special ones." I was officially creeped out, but I didn't want to make a scene. I just nodded like I didn't quite hear her and turned to Ellie. "Hey, sweetie, want to go check out the slides before the line gets long?" Ellie nodded, relieved to be moving again. I stood up, and as I did, Justine called out, "Maybe next week we can all do something together, outside the park." Ellie seems like she'd love a playdate. I gave the most non-committal, "Maybe," I could manage and walked away. My stomach was in knots the whole walk home. I kept thinking, maybe she's just lonely. Maybe I'm overthinking it, maybe it's just the way she talks. But it didn't feel right. Something told me that this woman wasn't just trying to make mom friends. Something told me that Ellie had become more than just a friendly face to her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wasn't panicked exactly, just unsettled. I kept playing that conversation over and over in my head, trying to figure out if I was being judgmental or if something was truly off. I even asked a friend of mine about it, another single mom I met through Ellie's preschool. She's a lot more direct than I am and said, "Okay, either she's super awkward or she's trying to be the creepy kind of mom friend. Trust your gut." So I did what a lot of us do when we're unsure. I decided to be cautious but not confrontational. Just keep an eye on things, maybe change up our park schedule a bit. But Ellie loved that park, and it was hard to say no when Saturday rolled around and she was already packing her bubble machine again. We got there early this time, maybe 9:15, hoping we'd beat the usual crowd. No such luck. Justine was already there. She was standing, not sitting this time, near the climbing wall. Caleb was in the stroller, a sleeper at least still, and Justine had what looked like 2 juice boxes in her hand. She spotted us and waved, way too eagerly. "Ellie, I brought you something." Ellie stopped short and looked up at me. Now, and I cannot stress this enough, I never told this woman Ellie's favorite juice. But what she was holding was a grape-flavored organic juice box. The exact kind I buy in bulk. Even Ellie recognized it. I stepped between them instinctively. That's really kind of you, but she's already had a drink. Justine looked confused, like I'd turned down a gift from the queen. Oh, it's just juice, she said lightly. I thought she might like it. You mentioned she liked grape, didn't you? I hadn't, not once. I forced a smile. We're good, but thank you. Justine looked disappointed. No, more like mildly offended. She tossed the second juice box into the stroller cup holder like it had personally betrayed her. You know, she said, shifting her tone, we should really set up that playdate. I live just a couple blocks away. I've got a fenced-in yard, little slide, sandbox, kids love it. It's quieter than this place too. I think I managed to keep my face neutral, but inside I was screaming. No thanks, I said gently. Ellie doesn't really do playdates with people she doesn't know well. Maybe some other time. Her smile flickered, just a crack, before she smoothed it out again. Sure, some other time. The rest of the morning, she stayed unnervingly close. Like she always happened to be nearby, within earshot, tossing out the occasional comment about Ellie's laugh, her outfit, how confident she was for her age. It was too much. When we left that day, I told Ellie we were going to start trying out a different park for a while. She pouted a bit but was easily bribed with the promise of donuts and a new set of sidewalk chalk. And for a moment, I thought that would be the end of it. I thought maybe Justine would forget about us, move on, find someone else to weird out. But I was wrong, because the next time we went back, nearly 3 weeks later, she wasn't just waiting at the park. She was already talking to Ellie. After 3 weekends of avoiding the park, I started to feel a little silly. I mean, who changes their kid's routine because of one awkward mom with a weird vibe? Maybe I was overreacting. Justine hadn't done anything directly threatening. Just strange, too friendly, a little intense, but I kept replaying her words, you don't see kids like her anymore, and, if I had a daughter, I'd want one just like her. Those comments hadn't aged well in my mind. And the juice, the way she'd remembered or figured out Ellie's favorite flavor without being told, that really stuck with me. Still, I figured if we went early, stuck to the other side of the park, and kept it quick, it'd be fine. Ellie was so excited. She missed the big slide in her favorite tree. It had been a long week for both of us, work had been stressful, and she was dealing with a cough that had kept her up a few nights. This was supposed to be a reset. We got there just before 9 a.m. The park was empty except for a guy jogging in the distance. I breathed a little easier, pushed Ellie on the swing, and even managed to start sketching again, something I hadn't done in weeks. But that calm didn't last. About 20 minutes in, I looked up to find Ellie gone from the swings. I panicked. She never just wanders off. I stood up immediately, scanning the area, and that's when I saw her. Justine, kneeling next to Ellie by the sandbox. Talking to her. Ellie wasn't smiling. She looked stiff, like she wasn't sure what to do. Her little hands were holding her shovel and bucket, but she wasn't playing. Just standing there. I was across the park in seconds. Ellie, I called, trying not to sound alarmed. She looked up and ran toward me. Justine stood up slowly, brushing invisible dirt off her knees. Hey, she said with a smile like nothing was wrong. I just said hi when I saw her walking by. She didn't even see me until I waved. I knelt to Ellie's level and asked quietly, did you walk over here by yourself? She shook her head. She called me. She said she had a new toy I could try. I looked back at Justine. My stomach dropped. You called her over? I asked. Not angry yet, just trying to stay calm. She was just a few feet away, Justine said, holding up her hands like I was overreacting. And I really did have something for her, a little toy car from Caleb's stuff. She looked bored. I was just being nice. My throat tightened. You do not call over someone else's kid, I said flatly. Ever. You should know better. Justine's smile faded. I was just being friendly. Well, don't talk to my daughter. Don't give her things. Don't approach her. Please respect our space. She looked at me like I'd just slapped her. Wow, she said quietly, eyes narrowing behind her sunglasses. You really think the worst of people, don't you? I didn't even respond. I just took Ellie's hand and left. In the car, Ellie asked me, am I in trouble? My heart broke. I told her no, of course not, that she did the right thing by telling me what happened. But that ride home was when it clicked. This wasn't just an awkward mom trying to be friendly. This woman was trying to wedge herself into my child's life, and I had no idea how far she was willing to go. After that day, I decided we weren't going back to that park. Period. I didn't explain everything to Ellie, just told her we were trying out new spots for a while, and maybe even some indoor play areas. She was disappointed, of course, but 5-year-olds are wonderfully distractible. A trampoline park and a new plush sloth were enough to keep her happy for the time being. But I wasn't happy. I was anxious. Not full-blown panic. Not yet, but this steady, low-level unease that followed me through my week. It clung to me when I was making breakfast, when I was answering emails, even when I was brushing Ellie's hair in the mornings. I started double-checking that our doors were locked, more than once. I found myself glancing out the front window more often, expecting what, I didn't even know. And then it got weirder. It was a Thursday afternoon when I noticed it. Our building has a little community bulletin board near the mailboxes, mostly filled with babysitter ads, dog walking services, and the occasional lost cat flyer. I passed it every day without thinking. But this time, something caught my eye, a bright pink flyer with a crayon drawing of what looked like a little girl holding a balloon. It was childlike but clearly drawn by an adult trying to make it look like a kid made it. I stopped to read it. Looking for playdates for my sweet boy. We're new in the area and hoping to meet some fun, friendly kids around age 4 to 6. My Caleb would love a bubbly, artistic little friend to share adventures with. We love unicorns, dinosaurs, and juice picnics. Contact Justine at phone number. That name, that overly specific list of interests, Ellie's interests. Unicorns, dinosaurs, juice picnics. That's our life. In the drawing, I swear to God, it looked like it was supposed to be Ellie. The hair was auburn, the skirt, a rainbow, and next to her was a blue dinosaur, Ellie's bubble machine. I stood there, heart pounding, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was just coincidence. Maybe Caleb liked the same stuff. Maybe she was just trying to reach more people. But how did she know where we lived? I hadn't told her. I hadn't mentioned our apartment complex, our street, nothing. Had she followed us? I ripped the flyer down. I didn't say anything to the building manager yet, I didn't want to sound paranoid. But I kept that flyer, folded it up and tucked it into a drawer in my desk. Justine had crossed a boundary, again, and now she'd done it without even seeing us. She wasn't trying to be friendly anymore. She was fishing for Ellie, and it was starting to feel personal. Life settled into a cautious rhythm after the flyer incident. I still hadn't told many people, just one close friend who insisted I document everything, just in case. She even suggested I call the non-emergency police line, but I hesitated. What would I say? A mom at the park was too friendly. It sounded insane when I said it out loud. But inside, I knew. Something wasn't right. I began adjusting small routines. Taking different routes home. Changing up Ellie's wardrobe more often, so she wouldn't stand out so easily in her usual favorite stuff. I even started parking 2 blocks away from the preschool instead of directly outside. That part was just a gut feeling. And unfortunately, it turned out to be the right one. Ellie goes to a small, private preschool, not fancy, but tight-knit and secure. You need a code to enter the gate, and parents have to sign in for pickup. I always arrive 10 to 15 minutes early, mostly out of habit, and wait near the front gate where a few benches are set up. That day, it was a Tuesday, I was early, sipping a lukewarm coffee. And scrolling through emails. The weather was nice, lots of other parents milling about, nothing out of the ordinary. Until I noticed a woman I didn't recognize leaning against the fence a few yards away. She had a hoodie on, sunglasses, and her hair tucked up in a baseball cap. That's not so unusual, we all have bad hair days, but what stood out was how she wasn't looking at her phone, or chatting with anyone else. She was just watching the playground. Watching very intently. I couldn't see Ellie from where I was sitting, but I knew her class was out there somewhere, finishing up their outdoor time. The woman shifted slightly, enough for me to see her profile under the hoodie, and my stomach flipped. It was Justine, even though she was dressed completely differently from how I'd ever seen her. No yoga pants, no stroller, no iced coffee, it was her. I recognized her jawline, her posture, even the way she tapped her foot rhythmically, like she always did at the park. I stood up, walked slowly toward the gate. She didn't see me at first. When I was about 10 feet away, I said, not loudly, but firmly, Justine. She turned her head slightly, didn't say anything. I asked you a question, I said, a little louder. Why are you here? She smiled faintly, but didn't answer. Instead, she just pulled her hoodie down a little lower and turned to walk away. Not run, not hurry, just casually walked down the sidewalk and disappeared around the corner. I stood there frozen for a second. Then I ran inside. I told the staff immediately. They didn't recognize her, and they hadn't seen her try to approach any kids, thank God. But they took me seriously. We reviewed the security footage from the entrance cameras, and there she was, pacing outside the gate for nearly 15 minutes before I noticed her. She never tried to come in, never spoke to anyone, she was just watching. The school took it seriously, sent an email to all parents describing a suspicious individual observed near the playground, and advised everyone to be cautious during pickup hours. They didn't name her, but I knew exactly who she was. And now, I wasn't just uneasy. I was afraid. After the preschool incident, I finally stopped trying to convince myself this was harmless or just an overly friendly mom. This was something else, something obsessive. I reported everything I had, including the flyer and the footage from the preschool, to the local police department. They were polite, and they listened, but predictably, they said there wasn't much they could do unless Justine had made a direct threat, trespassed, or tried to take Ellie. Keep documenting, they said. If she escalates, call us. That word, escalates, stuck with me. Because deep down, I think I knew she would. A week went by, no sign of her, no flyers, no strange messages, no sightings. And then, on a Wednesday evening, around 7:30 p.m., she showed up. At my door. I had just gotten Ellie settled into bed. She wanted me to sing the Moon Song, her current favorite lullaby. I remember it vividly because I was halfway through it when the doorbell rang. Now, we don't get many visitors. My building is quiet, and most people text before coming over. The sound of that bell in the dark still gives me chills. I froze. Ellie sat up and whispered, "Is that Daddy?" I knew it wasn't. I told her to stay in bed and quietly walked to the front door. We've got one of those peepholes, but I didn't need it, I could see the silhouette through the frosted glass. Thin frame, blonde hair, hoodie, Justine. She was just standing there. Not knocking, not pacing, just standing completely still. I didn't open the door. Instead, I grabbed my phone, heart pounding, and called 911. While I was on the phone with the dispatcher, Justine finally knocked. 3 slow knocks, then a pause. Then she called out, softly, through the door, "I just want to talk. I think you've misunderstood me." I didn't respond. I just waited, quietly giving my address to the dispatcher, praying Ellie wouldn't come out of her room. Another knock. "Please. I just feel like you're not seeing how good this could be. I could help. She deserves someone who gets her." I get her. That was the last straw. I told the dispatcher exactly what she said and begged them to hurry. Justine stood there for another minute or two, then calmly walked away. By the time the police arrived, she was gone. They took my statement, reviewed the doorbell camera footage, bless my overly cautious friend who gifted me one, just in case, last year, and finally, they agreed this wasn't just a misunderstanding. They filed a report, warned me to call again if she returned, and told me I could apply for a restraining order. Which I did, but getting that kind of protection takes time, and paper, and more patience than I had in my bones at that point. I couldn't sleep that night. And neither could Ellie. She came into my bed around 2 a.m., said she had a bad dream that someone was knocking too loud. She had no idea how real that dream was. The days after the door incident felt like a blur. I kept Ellie home from preschool the next day, too paranoid to let her out of my sight. I contacted the building manager to make sure they were aware of the situation. She was concerned, of course, but still, there wasn't much anyone could do except add extra patrols to the complex. I wasn't sure how that would help if Justine had already proven she could move in and out unnoticed. The police didn't take long to process my report, and a few days later, I had a meeting with an officer, who explained the options available: a restraining order, increased patrols in the neighborhood, and a recommendation to take more precautions. But as we went through the motions, I started to feel more helpless. Nothing felt like it would make her stop. The restraining order was in the works, but that takes time, too much time. And Justine, she'd gotten smarter. The last few days, I hadn't seen her around at all. It was on a Friday when it all came crashing down. I'd just gotten Ellie to bed early after a long week. I sat down in the living room, trying to unwind with a book, when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You don't understand yet, but you will. She needs me. She's special." The message sent a cold wave of panic through me. She needs me. Who says that about a child they barely know? I didn't respond. I just stared at the message, feeling my pulse quicken, the dread growing deeper. Something about it felt personal, like a warning. A declaration. Then, an hour later, I got another text. "I'm so close now, you'll see." I felt sick to my stomach, staring at the screen. Who the hell was this? The feeling in my gut told me it was Justine, but I couldn't be sure. Still, I didn't have much choice but to act like it was her. I wasn't waiting around for her to escalate any further. I went to the police station the next morning and showed them the messages. They seemed a bit more urgent this time, finally acknowledging the seriousness of what was happening. But they couldn't do anything directly without more evidence. "Just stay alert," they told me. "Keep us updated if anything else happens." I spent that day trying to relax, hoping I was overreacting. I really did, but by 3 p.m., when I picked Ellie up from school, my blood ran cold. There she was, Justine, standing by the gate, waiting. I'm not sure how she got there, how she knew the exact time I'd be picking Ellie up, but there she was, leaning against the post, staring at me with that unnervingly calm expression. I couldn't even say a word. I just marched straight over, grabbed Ellie's hand, and turned to leave. But Justine didn't move. "Why are you running from me?" she called out, her voice soft, almost pleading. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone." I felt a surge of anger mixed with fear. "Stay away from us. You're not welcome here." Her smile didn't fade. It was this weird, cold, pitying smile. "I told you, she's different. She deserves so much more than what you can give her." That phrase again. She deserves more. I was done trying to reason with her. I rushed Ellie into the car, and this time, I didn't look back. I called the police on the way home, still shaking, and told them she was there. Again, this time so close. When I got home, I called my lawyer about the restraining order. At least this time, the threat felt real enough to get it approved. But then the officer called me back with unsettling news. They had found something, a report that wasn't filed under her name, but it matched her description. In a neighboring city, a year ago, a similar situation had occurred. Same tactics, same words, the same obsession with a young child. A woman had approached another family, claiming their daughter deserved better. It hadn't escalated beyond a few creepy encounters, until it did. In the other case, Justine hadn't been caught before things turned violent. I swallowed hard as the officer continued. "We're going to need you to stay alert. She has a history, and we need to make sure she doesn't escalate any further." My blood went cold. This was no longer just a creepy neighbor situation. It was something much darker. The next few days were a blur of meetings with the police, the lawyer, and trying to keep things as normal as possible for Ellie. I'd already started locking the doors and windows earlier than usual, and my sense of paranoia was growing by the hour. I didn't want Ellie to feel the tension, but she noticed anyway. "Mom," she said quietly one evening as we were sitting on the couch watching cartoons, "why does that lady keep looking at us?" I froze. "What lady, sweetie?" "The one with the funny hat and sunglasses. She always looks at me." I squeezed my eyes shut, trying not to panic. She couldn't have seen Justine. I hadn't seen her anywhere near the building. Not in the past few days, anyway. But then I thought of something. I hadn't told Ellie about Justine's past, but Ellie had that quiet, perceptive way about her. She wasn't imagining things. I looked over at Ellie, trying to stay calm. "What else did she say?" Ellie shrugged. She just waved and smiled. "Like last time. But then she whispered that I shouldn't be alone with you." My heart sank. Whispered that I shouldn't be alone with you. What the hell was that supposed to mean? I didn't ask any more questions. Instead, I texted the police once again. They told me to get her to a safe place and stay alert. They had made a move in tracking Justine, but there was nothing concrete yet. They needed time. That night, the final straw came. Around midnight, I was woken by loud banging on the door. Knock 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 knock. I scrambled out of bed, terrified Ellie might be awake, but when I checked her room, she was sound asleep. The knocking persisted, more forceful now, almost frantic. I looked through the peephole. My heart stopped. It was Justine. Her face was pressed against the door, eyes wide and crazed. She was holding something in her hands, but I couldn't make out what it was. I backed away from the door, my hands trembling as I dialed 911 again. I told them everything, how she'd been at the gate, how she'd left creepy messages, how she had somehow found us here. The police arrived in under 10 minutes, but by the time they knocked on the door, Justine was gone. The officer who arrived wasn't surprised. "We've been tracking her for a while now," he said, his face serious. "She's been slipping through the cracks. She knows how to hide in plain sight. But we've got a team now, and we won't let her get away with this." I wasn't sure what getting away with this even meant anymore. I was just glad she was gone, for now. The restraining order was granted, and the police made it clear they were watching her. She wouldn't be able to approach us anymore without facing serious consequences. After that night, Justine disappeared. I never saw her again. Not in the neighborhood, not near the preschool, not anywhere. The text stopped. The creepy notes, the surveillance, the endless warnings, it all stopped. It took a while for me to feel like I could relax again. Even now, the memories of her weird, unsettling smile and the way she watched us still creep in at night, just before sleep. The knowledge that I was always being watched, but never knew when, is something that stays with you. But one thing is certain, I'll never forget the way it felt to protect my daughter, to step up when I realized the threat wasn't just something weird or inconvenient. It was real, and sometimes, even the most normal people can have terrifying obsessions. Now, when I think back on everything that happened, I'm grateful for the police, for the restraining order, for the friends who were there for me, and for the moment I finally found the courage to protect my child in ways I didn't even know I was capable of. Justine might have vanished from my life, but I'll never forget how close I came to losing everything I'd worked so hard to protect. This is the end of the story. Thank you for sticking with me through the journey.